Hello, Jamie from Inky and Scrappy, sharing with you today a platform pop-up with a slider feature. This one was so much fun to play with. I am using Fawn's Coaster Critter stamp set and the add-on die set for that slider mechanism or track, I guess you could say. And so I took out a couple of pieces that I knew I was going to use. I didn't end up using this piece because I ended up just using that slider piece. I was kind of thinking I could use that piece as a guide to cut the top border and then just like partial die cut it, but I didn't think it was going to work like I wanted it to work. So I abandoned that ship and just went with the slider track. And you will see I end up having to hand cut some of this out. I did run it through my die cut machine like 3 times, but I think my die cut machine is starting to go. It just doesn't have the pressure that it used to. So I am using MFT's slider elements. These ones are the oblong ones. They're not the circle ones. You could also use a foam adhesive piece, one that would fit in that track would work just fine. Just make sure to add some anti-static powder or baby powder to get the stick off of it. And then I always take a nail file and file down both sides of that plastic piece. It seems to make sure that it adheres better to the paper. I've never had a problem with these coming off, and usually if I have to remove them, they stick very well. So I don't know, it seems to work well to make sure that it's just a little rough. So I will add that to my car that I just die cut out of some heavyweight white cardstock and set that aside. And then I will add my coaster onto my track. So in a traditional slider card, you need to have layers of foam adhesive to build up so your slider can actually slide on your card, right? Well, in a platform pop-up, you don't need those layers of cardstock, but you need something for it to slide on. So that something is going to be that acetate sheet because it's kind of invisible. You know, it hides very well on your card. So you can see through it. It's all good. So I'm just adding that piece there. And then I will put my platform pop-up box together, or the two halves together, if you will. I only show one side getting put together. I probably should have videoed the second side because I ended up having problems with my second one. And so because this one is pattern paper and it's a lighter weight, it's probably about a 65 weight cardstock. It's not, you know, horribly thick, and it's probably the lighter that I would go for a platform pop-up box. But I didn't get that fold for my one middle one in the proper place. And so when I go to put it together, it looked good. I kind of adjusted it. I thought I was good on it, and it looked fine when it was folded flat. It was when I popped it up that I ended up having some issues. So I'm adding my little fox to my little go-kart here, or my little coaster cart here. Coaster car. I think they're called coaster cars. Coaster car. And then I will let him dry. And before I add that to my actual slider, I figured it's probably easier to cut it apart and make sure it fits in my platform pop-up before I add that bulky piece to it so I can get it to go through my guillotine cutter here. So I'm just kind of eyeballing, measuring, and figuring out how much I need. This way, as long as I know it's going to be no taller than this, it's going to fit in my centerpiece there. I have quit making middle tees for mine. I just either use like this or I use a full piece of a hill or grass that goes at least, you know, down a good little bit. I just find it's more stable in that center piece that way, because otherwise it's a long piece with a, you know, only, what's the T? Maybe a ½ inch or so, a little bit more. So I just find it gives it a little more stability. I'm just cutting around my track. I need to keep my track fully intact so that it works as a sliding track. And so you'll see that it has a little bit of that acetate above the track, and then both of the ends are fully closed yet. And so I'm going to add some double-sided, well, I will add my car. So I used the little car cutout to help line this up, and I ended up hand cutting my car with the fox in it because I lost the die cut for the little coaster car on my desk. I have no clue where it is. I still can't find it. I cleaned my desk off and I can't find it. I've looked on the floor. I don't know where it is. I give up. Tell me I'm not the only one that has those problems. So as you can see, that piece of grass is flush with the bottom there. It should be fine. It's not. I'll show you later. So this one I just had decided on a dark gray. I wanted it to kind of look like an asphalt sidewalk or little road. At least here in Minnesota, that's what the Valley Fair, well, they used to. I haven't been there for a bunch of years, but they have like tarred walkways. So that's kind of what I was going for, because they're little wild rails. I don't even know if they have the wild rail anymore, but their little white roller coaster that this coaster reminds me of is like right next to a huge walkway. So that's what I was thinking. So I'm just decorating my other platforms here, and then I will start to put this together because I need to add in that coaster to figure out where I want my placement on some of my other things. I'm also going to pull out the rest of my stamped images. And so, yep, see, I'm telling you, I probably played with it after this point more than I spent time on putting my card together. It happens. What's the fun in making it if you can't play with it? Just saying. And so here, because my back part was sticking out just a little bit, I knew it was going to interfere with the platform pop-up box when it was closed. And so thankfully I hadn't, and then I was like, oh, I can go here with it, but then I have a gap. And so I could have covered the gap from the front and not worried about the back, but I had adhesive on the back already. So I just ended up taking a gray piece of cardstock and kind of rounding the corners so I didn't have to worry about them sticking out funnily or just being a straight up piece. And then I added that on there with a little bit of a boost, so it was up in the air just a little bit more than it was when I initially did it. And then I'm going to add more adhesive and put the front together. And then because my car is kind of bulky, I just kind of moved it up a little bit so I didn't have to worry about trying to line it up and smoosh it in there. And then I'll do the other side. And this is when I notice I'm going to have some issues, but it might not have been this point. It might have been a little bit later. Any hoosers, I'm going to add that back roller coaster piece in there. And then I decide to add some more to that in a little bit. And then because when I was playing with it, it worked fine. The whole coaster car went from the front of the line to the back of the line. But I just felt like it was getting caught on that top piece because it would bow just a little bit. And so I end up adding a piece of acetate to kind of support that and keep the car above the back hill here. I'm just going to add some little coaster cars to the back. It kind of helps with that depth and dimension thing. If they look littler behind you, they're further away, right? So I'm just going to add, I kind of figured out where I wanted that car to stop, where the best place was going to be. So it sits on top of the hill just fine, and it'll slide down it, and then it doesn't get impeded by, it doesn't flex on the top so much, it kind of supports it. And once you support that top, you're blocking the slider mechanism from moving. So that is what it is. And then I decided to add the little bunch of balloons to help cover that up, and it decorates it at the same time. And then I end up going and finding some more little images to use, and I decided Lawn Fawn needs to come out with a little mini critter set. They have all these little mini people or tiny people. I need tiny critters to go with my big critters because, depth and dimension, right? If I have little critters in the back and big critters in the front, it's going to be cute. It's on my want list. That's all I'm going to say. So I did cut out and color another one of those big coasters, and then I'm just going to piece this in here, and it ends up working almost perfectly with what I had already cut for my platform piece from one to the next. And then I just sneak that in there. It gives it a different coaster look than the front one, but it kind of finishes that off. I like it. And so this is where I realized that that front piece is sitting up. And if you look at the shadow, you can see the light going underneath that front piece. It is probably up 1/8 of an inch maybe. It's not horrible, but it bows. And I know people have been asking on the Lawn Fawn Addicts group, like, what am I doing wrong? It's bowing. It's just that that front piece did not make contact in the proper spot on the front of the panel, like your top piece. And so at least I could tell that it was just slightly off, and that's what caused that bow. So when it was laying flat, it was flush. It looked fine. The T was flush with the base piece. So I figured I was good, and I didn't even bat an eyelash at it. And it's not a huge deal. Nobody's really going to notice it but me. So the fox is standing on top of the platform pop-up, and when it's folded down, he's actually tucked in that little T-hole. That's kind of how I got around it. It looks like he's further forward, the bunny is further back, and it's, I just rolled with it. It's fine. I think we overanalyze sometimes. I don't think anyone else would have noticed it but me, because I made it, so I noticed the flaw. It's all good. So I'm going to add my bunny with the balloon here, and I think it's got cotton candy in the other hand, because what's a day at the fair without some cotton candy? And then I'm going to add some glossy accents at this point in time in the card because I'm not done yet, and it made sense in my head. It didn't. I don't know. I don't always make sense. Does that make sense? A smart woman would have waited until she was done with the whole card and then added the glossy accents to the balloons. But I did not. I decided that a ticket would look really cute on the front, and I don't know if I own very many ticket dies. Like, I swear I do, but I don't. Or I couldn't locate anything that was like in the right size range. So I ended up going old school and bringing out my Tim Holtz die or ticket. What is it? Ticket strip, I think it is. And so it has the little bendy things, just like your old-fashioned tickets. I love it. It's like one of my favorite old school dies. Not that I use it a horribly lot, but it's just so, I don't know, so versatile. And then I'm just adding my sentiment. I'm using everything from that Lawn Fawn stamp set. I didn't pull in any other stamp sets today. That for me is not normal. Usually I use more than one stamp set. I'm usually all over the place. So I'll set that off to the side, and then my heat gun here, we are bidding it farewell. It has been demoted or promoted maybe, to shop duty. My son came in right after I was done with this and stole it. And so I did have another one up in the cupboard. It was going to be a gift that I got on clearance for like $5, and it was 2-speed. So I thought about giving that one to him, but I'm like, it's 2-speed and mine's 1-speed. And so he got the old one. I got the new one. I, told this one how much I loved it and that it was going to be in good hands and to treat him well and don't die. Those were, and then I hugged it, and my son just gave me this look like, you can have it back, Mom, if you're that attached. I'm like, no, I was just giving it a proper farewell. If I can't keep my kids guessing if I'm sane or not, what's the fun in being their mother? I'm just sneakily adding in this little piece of grass back here. It covers up that piece of acetate that's showing and finishes off that middle layer. And of course, I'm trying to do this carefully because that glossy accents is all still wet. And of course, I push my, car up there, and I'm like, oh shoot, that's gonna get stuck on the glossy accents. Down the little slope you go. So he ended up going down pretty fast. And then I'm gonna add the little bear on the front. Have a thrilling birthday. And then because everything was still wet when I put it together, I ended up smudging just the front balloon. I think had a little smudge on it, so I just ended up adding a very tiny thin layer on top of that one, and the rest looked all right. And then that is the finished card for today, using Lawn Fawn's Coaster Critters and their platform pop-up and making it into a slider. It was so much fun to play with, and I'm still playing with it. I don't know. This one might have to stick around for a little while because I need to play with it some more before I let it go to its new home. There are the still photos for you. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, please ask below, and please subscribe if you enjoy watching the videos. Have a great day.